And to start the meeting, I'll give you the required open meeting laws requirement to tell you that this is getting recorded, and use the credentials if you, which of course you've already have because you're on the meeting. It will get posted at some time on Westborough TV. And if you have any questions, you can call the town hall. Lee, you're muted.
I think she did it purposely.
I think she was, okay. The agenda.
Excuse me, Pete. I think you actually have to read that. What you just said, you actually have to read it in case somebody's listening in. I'm sorry, but it's long, but you have to read it.
Okie doke.
Yeah.
We don't want to disappoint the governor.
I'm sorry.
Pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions, which I guess have now been unsuspended. But anyway, of the open meeting laws, General Law, Chapter 30A, I guess that's paragraph 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Sustainable Westborough is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to listen and/or view this meeting while in progress may do so by connecting to the following Zoom meeting. That information was posted on the town website with the posting of this meeting. I don't plan to read all of that. In addition, the meeting will be recorded by Westborough TV and will be posted on their website for viewing at the westboroughTV.org website. If you have questions concerning the open meeting laws, please call 508-366-3030 and they will help you.
Good.
So the agenda is posted here as it was distributed earlier. The primary topic is going to be discussing the Community Choice Aggregation Communication Plan. But as shown, we will be going through these items. So the first matter of business is approval of the April minutes, which Eileen graciously agreed to type up. And before I go any further, can somebody take minutes for this meeting, please?
I can do that again.
Okay.
It's Eileen.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I had some minor edits to what Eileen had sent out, and it was then distributed back a couple of times. Eileen sent it out earlier today, which was the second time it was sent. Do we have a motion? Is there any questions or concerns about the minutes of the April meeting?
Nope.
Motion to accept.
Accepted.
Katie,
I'll
are you
make a
moving?
motion to accept. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the April minutes in a second. We'll do a roll call. Lee,
Accept.
Cheryl,
Accept.
John,
Accept.
Carol,
Accept.
Deb,
Accept.
Tim, Eileen,
Accept.
Tim, okay. Amit,
Accept.
Katie.
Accept.
Okay, so one of the topics we're going to be discussing is who gets to vote. And so things like that, we should have good clarity of who the members are and who are the voting members and stuff. And that's what the fourth agenda item is about. So we have accepted the April minutes as edited and redistributed earlier over the weekend. Green Community Competitive Grant Update. Cheryl, please jump in. I put a few little notes together. We did submit all of our package, which turned out to be 19 files on April 23rd. Basically got a receipt from DOER that it's been accepted. The submission package has been accepted and is now under review. The requested amount there is shown on the slide, almost $154,000. I asked some questions about when we might hear back, and the answer was a little fuzzy because in the past, the grant announcement has been in July, but because the submission deadline was shifted by 5 weeks and other COVID-related delays, she said to expect this to be pushed out later in the summer. The only impact to that, to us, I think, is that we need to complete all of the projects within the calendar year in order to apply next year. So it just squeezes the amount of time we have unless they give us some relief on the other end. But I thought we did a good job getting a package together, and it's all been submitted. And thanks particularly to Cheryl for driving a great deal of the development of the package.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you,
You're
Cheryl.
welcome.
So I would assume they would give us some leeway on the other end, Pete, but obviously we have to wait and find out.
Yeah, it's as a lot of things these days. It's they're peeling the onion back one step at a time. So we'll see. But we did our best and we got it in and met the deadline, and we'll see what comes of it. One of our requests requires a town meeting vote to approve a portion of the majority of the cost of the police cruisers, where we're going to get $10,000. So $10,000 of that requires a town meeting vote, which can happen after they provide the grant.
So Pete, I've been walking down to the high school every other day, and Tim and I have noticed that they've been taking all of the lighting out that they're replacing with the LED from the grant. And it looks like they've finally finished that. It was an odd thing to have the high school empty. I guess they're able to do it much quicker and more efficiently than they would have been able to otherwise. So there was a little bit of a silver lining to using that money from the grant and getting everything done for the change in the lighting.
Yeah, just a point of clarification there is that it wasn't grant money. It was a deal they put together with National Grid, where National Grid is allowing the payments for the lighting to be made over the next 4 years, and the savings on the electricity are greater than the payments that are getting paid back. So the town immediately saves money, and with no cash outlay, gets the LEDs, but it's not in the green community pool of money. The other schools, there were like 3 other schools that were considered, and one of them is in the 2020 grant request that we just submitted. Armstrong, correct, Cheryl?
Yes, Armstrong.
So the high school was actually identified as one of our co-payment, our
Supporting projects.
supporting projects that the town is putting money into energy efficiency. They're looking for matching funds as much as it's one of the criteria. So we highlighted high school as one of the matching fund
Well,
projects.
looks like they finished it. So that's good.
Next agenda topic is, let's see if I can get this to go up. John Metzger, Carol, and Eileen talking about the community choice aggregation communication plan. And John, I assume you'll be putting the slides up?
I can do that if, can I share the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Oops, sorry. Thought we were, that was on, I'm showing,
You're sharing. You're sharing. You're good.
you got it right? Okay, because what
Yep.
I'm seeing is not what I think I'm seeing. I'm seeing I'm displaying what I thought was a full screen slide. But are you seeing slide?
We're full screen right now.
Okay. Seemed a little synchronization problem. Okay, so this is an update on community choice aggregation. Just wanted to go over the timeline of what's happened up to now and a couple of the meetings that have happened and the way forward. This is a compendium of ideas that in part came out of a different discussions, but included a meeting that Carol, Eileen, and I had with the Peregrine Energy consultants after the contract prices were discussed. So we have some sense of how we can work together. I just wanted to run through this, and there's a number of questions that and points that I think will be of interest to people in general. Okay, since we at our last meeting, we voted on a resolution which was presented to the Board of Selectmen regarding the new CCA program, but there was a similar one passed by the Climate Action Plan. And at that subcommittee's meeting, the board confirmed support of this kind of program. And they assigned Shelby Marshall as their representative for the contract process. And Christy Williams is leading the contract effort. And Pete and I have been, were allowed to assist in that evaluation. We had a meeting on the 29th of April where the Peregrine Energy, our consultants, showed us the bids that they listed for new electricity prices under the contract to start in November. These were same-day bids. They had to be decided by 4 o'clock that day. Turns out there were prices that worked for us to allow having both a default plan with extra energy that we wanted and other options that were in sensible prices. Right now, the pricing is confidential until the town, particularly the Board of Selectmen, chooses otherwise. In particular, Peregrine Energy has recommended that we keep the pricing confidential until they actually finalize. There's a chance of a slight, like a 10th or 100th of a cent change due to some regulations that come in, get finalized probably in June. So the actual announcement of prices won't, and via a press release wouldn't occur till after that. So likely June or July. But while we can't say what the prices are, they are in the range that we were hinting about it before, and I think they're, from what we can tell, competitively with other towns where we have pretty good prices. So there was a meeting on the 4th of May that Carol, Eileen, and I attended, along with a couple people from Peregrine Energy and Kim Foster from the Selectmen's assistant town manager, talking about how this will roll out and what Peregrine's role is. And I think Eileen and Carol would hopefully confirm that Peregrine's got a lot of experience with other towns and can help us in a number of ways in preparing materials and giving us ideas about what did and didn't work in other places. So it looks like it's the making of a good partnership, and we're not going to have to invent everything from scratch, but can depend on them and for a lot of help. So I wanted to review how switching works over, just in case it isn't clear. We learned some details that we didn't quite know. Westborough plans will switch in November. Okay, so the old supplier will be supplying electricity up until everyone's meter read date in November, and then thereafter the new supplier will supply electricity. That's the way the accounting works. So in all accounts that are on the community choice aggregation program will automatically switch over. No actions are required unless people want to change what's going to happen. So any account that's enrolled as in the default plan, which is more than 99% of the current accounts, will move to the new default plan. The major difference there is the new default has 20% more so-called mass class 1 renewable energy. We'll just call that the good stuff for now, and we can talk about what that means later. Accounts that have opted up to the prior greener plan will move into the new greener plan that has 100% of the good stuff. Okay, because the billing sort of is rearwards, that when you get a bill, it's for the prior month's electricity you used, people won't actually see new rates and new supplier names until they get their December bill, or the bill based on December meter read.
So John,
So there's
John,
yeah.
I'd sent you a note. I think
I answered that. This was very clear when we talked to Marlena. This is the way it works for these, for the way the electricity is billed.
okay.
Okay, and she clear that isn't the way it works when Eversource changes, for example, their charges. They split months, but for this, when the suppliers change, it works on a bill date, a meter read date basis.
Yeah, I thought it was the November meter read.
Yeah, it is the November meter read that it changes on, so that you don't start getting electricity from the new supplier till after your November read. So the first bill that you'll be billed for electricity from the new supplier will be your December bill.
Okay.
And the November read is for your October to November usage, which is under the old supply contract. Is Eileen and Carol, is that your understanding?
It's
Yes, it is my understanding.
okay. I stand corrected.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't clear to us at all. Okay, it was that was one of those things that that's
John,
just,
John, just help me understand this. So the bullet that says the first-time customers will see the new rates, supplier's name will be in the bill based on the December read. It's the December bill, but it's really the read from the couple months prior?
No, the December meter read would be your usage between your November read and your December read. Okay.
So if that could be made a little bit clearer in that one bullet, it's the November to December usage, and it's the December read of that.
Yes.
Maybe that would help.
Yeah, that's a good point. Remember what they do is each bill reading, they look at the current reading on your meter and your last month's reading, and they subtract the two, and that's your usage for the prior 30 days or whatever it is. So the December read would be the difference between the November meter read and the December meter read, and that will be attributed to the new supplier. So we can make that clearer somehow.
Maybe an analogy would be like when a child has their first birthday, because you have to use the energy first for them to charge you for it.
That's correct.
Or count it. So just like the child uses 12 months before they turn 1. It's the same kind of.
You're billed for electricity used, not anticipated reading. So it's always the prior month that you're getting your bill for.
And can I add one thing that what gets confusing is everybody has a different meter read date. So it's not necessarily November 1st to December 1st. It depends on your individual meter read date.
I assume they drive around, little trucks drive around and read these things. And so any work day of the month could be the meter read.
So in some ways, I'm apologizing for the driving us into a rat hole here, but in the other, that's the type of thing we need to be really crisp on as we do our communication so that people aren't surprised. So
Yeah, that's
that's
why
like a little microcosm of how we have to have good, crisp communication.
and the questions here are a microcosm of that.
Yeah.
I wrote it out. I thought it was clear to me.
So I apologize for interrupting your flow, but it does demonstrate the point, I guess.
There's going to be, because there's be umpteen of these little glitches that will not get quite right the first time. So it's
I think the birth date analogy was very useful.
yeah. All right, so that's the basics of the switchover. And then customers can change which plan they're in anytime. They can actually do it slightly before by telling Peregrine what they want, if they want something different. And any other time they can change back or even drop out for that matter. The one interesting little fact, which I think we didn't necessarily all fully appreciate, was if you buy a house, for example, then you call National Grid up and say, I want electricity, you're a new account and you'll be on National Grid initially. And you'll be buying your electricity through National Grid, but during the switchover, you won't get switched into the new contract until sort of they got things switched over. So maybe a few months delay. It probably could be as much as a 4 or 5 month delay because the old supplier won't actually do the switchover, won't take you on within the last month or two of their contract period because that's too much. That's hard for them to do and verify. And then the new one won't. So there's also an issue of new individuals or new businesses establishing an account with National Grid, but not initially getting thrown into the community choice aggregation plan for a few months because there'll be some delay. So that'll be another point of confusion.
So the customer has to wait for that letter to come from, does it come from the supplier, right, John?
The new supplier, yeah, gets the notice eventually from National Grid. And then you get a letter from them saying, you're going to be moved in the community choice aggregation program, but if you tell us within 30 days, we will not do that. So you get moved in unless you do something. So you have to have a 30-day opt-out letter. So again, more detail, probably more than anybody really wanted to know on a Monday night, but those are kinds of things we'll just have to know and perhaps have FAQs and things like that around. So, these kinds of crazy questions will be answered when because they will come up occasionally. Yeah. Anything else on this? It is simple but complex. Well, let me move on to the next step or so. We talked then about a bit about when to do this rollout, and I think we came to the conclusion, also talking with Peregrine, that the big promotion should be from about Labor Day or so, and we should take the time between now and Labor Day to get ready, and then really start promoting everything we know about this, telling people they have choices if they want to move, and making sure that people at Town Hall and other people understand the basics. So if they get questions, they'll be able to answer them or be able to help them or whatever. So here's a rough timeline where we've said to, I think it was said at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, this software, Sustainable Westborough would assist the town by doing much of the work to introduce the plans and to towns and the residents and businesses. So far, Carol and Eileen, myself, Tim, and Pete have volunteered to help with this. Any of the rest of you would like to dive in and be helpful, that'd be great. There's going to be a lot of work to do. This is just a rough timeline of what I think we were first thinking of. It's not a final timeline, but
John,
yes.
I think a good topic, a good idea to consider either in person or webinar, like we did Saturday, is just an educational seminar on this topic, because I think it's just a topic that people don't understand very well, and I'm sure we could get a good turnout if we did an educational seminar of some sort.
I think that would be fine. The question is, and maybe we'll probably, I said here in November, September to November, it's kind of vague, like conduct information and help sessions virtually or in person when possible. I think that kind of session to really dive into it, I think would be really great. The question is how to get enough people to all of them, you know, but
It'll also be good to record it.
we can
Yeah.
record it and maybe,
Well, yeah, that's
maybe-
what we just,
go ahead.
that's what we just did with the seminar that we did on Saturday. So we got about a turnout. Amit will probably know the exact number. We had a turnout of about 20, and then we have a recorded asset that people can consume who have questions on the topic.
I mean, we certainly have the option of putting things on the website, for example, you know, a list of things you can do, or references to things available through Westborough TV or whatever. You know, but we certainly have lots of resources to try. So it'd be great. Did that thing you did on Saturday work right the first time? I mean, do these work without a hitch?
Yeah, we had no real technical issues of any kind, and considering it was Saturday afternoon on a pretty decent day weather-wise, a pretty good turnout.
Great. Well, people like the amount of commuting they had to do, probably.
Yep.
I think that, personally, I think that does help. I'm listening to a few things that I wouldn't otherwise have necessarily found time to actually get to. So it's easy to zoom into something that I can do remotely. Interesting advantage. Any other questions? This is a tentative. It's not final, but it's proposed.
It looks like a great plan. I think Katie's comments are excellent. It can be added in there. And the Board of Selectmen will do whatever they can to help on any one of these proposed timelines as they come up under issues and correspondence to the Selectmen. It can be announced, or even under the forum in the beginning, if somebody wants to come to that meeting, or even I could do it as an open forum, say, you're right at the beginning of the meeting,
So
this is what's happening next.
when we presented the motion to have the green default to the Board of Selectmen, and the subsequent discussion after that, Ian asked us to come back for a presentation on the communication plan. I followed up in the last couple of weeks with an email to Christie, and I believe you were copied, of that we would be coming back in June. So I think in the second meeting in June, where it says review communication plan with the selectmen, that is planned as a formal presentation at the board. The other point, which I don't think you mentioned, John, was the press release is a DPU requirement. The town has to develop a strategy of when they want to issue the press release. And as John did say, that it should probably be after the prices are finalized. But it doesn't even need to be in June, July. It could be later, like in September, as part of the launch program and stuff. So the press release is actually, I think, based, and John, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but can be adjusted based on what this committee, the communication plan group, puts out.
I think that's correct, from what I heard, yes.
And there's some advantage to getting the word out earlier, but there's some advantage to kind of making it part of an integrated launch.
And the advantages of repeat, repeat, repeat.
Yes. The press release would be pretty summarized, but and so it might lead to questions. People calling town hall, I don't understand this. So we need to be prepared before the press release goes out.
Yeah, so that's the argument for holding it off till we're really ready. And we have all the materials. We've had a chance to sit down with anybody in town hall that might get a question, so they at least know the basics, so they can answer the first couple of questions without a big problem.
Yeah, that is very important.
Because they don't need to get pestered by people all summer for something that isn't really going to happen until the end of nearly the way into the fall. Any All good points. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anything else? Just a quick comment on the last point. We know there's a certain number of what we'll call predatory competitive suppliers that get people to sign up for plans that are not necessarily very well priced or have sort of shaky clean energy claims. That's been reported all over the state. The Attorney General's been looking into them, but they're prevalent and they're not necessarily going away. So one of the things we talked about launching is some sort of educational program about these suppliers, seeing if there's some way to help that. We had a very short discussion with Peregrine about that. I think, it's a sticky problem everywhere. Nobody has a magic solution for that, but it's probably true that there are some people in town who are paying significantly more for their electricity than they ought to, but don't know it, or somehow got convinced they have the best plan in the world. So maybe there's a way we can help some people once we get the basic launch of this plan under our belt. Just providing clear information about what the prices should be versus what people might be paying might help. We'll see. Anything else? Let me go on quickly to a couple other points here. I just wanted to summarize what I think was sort of the basic objectives of the work we're doing. It's outreach, as in point 1, explaining that there are 3 plan types, highlighting the advantages of community choice, that is price stability, new choices for clean energy, and no contract or special fees. As a footnote, I would say, and there's a really important point, we cannot say anything about price advantages. There aren't, and there's some strict information which we'll go over some other time, but DPU is very vigilant about not towns and any of their communication not claiming anything about price advantages. So, and that's everything we're going to do. It's going to need to be reviewed to make sure that we are not crossing a line that the DPU would be required. And a disclaimer in most cases needs to be put on all communication to make sure nobody might misinterpret what we said. Just there are a lot of interests in parties that we need to get to, and I think the most important thing that certainly came out at the last selectmen's meeting is that people for whom the least cost plan option is the most important, people who are on fixed income, low income, have job instability, possibly unemployed, marginal businesses, whatever, people who are really, they want the least cost plan. The third option, the basic option, will be marginally cheaper than the default plan, and we want to make sure we tell people how they can select that least cost option. I think the board was very clear they'd want us to be energetic about that, and I think that we'll certainly try to do that. And we'll obviously have to coordinate with the town manager's office to make sure we're all on the same page and solve any problems. And because we're really working as an arm of what the selectmen's, the town manager's office are trying to do and roll out this plan. We're being their assistance in a major way. Any questions on objectives?
No questions, John, but you laid that out very nicely. I really appreciate your slides here.
Okay, so then the fine would just, I know it's getting a little boring. I just like to get sort of, here's the scope and that. I mean, I probably forgot some things. One of the things that Carol has been bringing up, which I think is really important, that the name Westborough Community Choice is, I don't know what she said, a loser. Well, maybe she didn't say that. But she doesn't like the word term at all.
Yeah, I don't like community choice aggregation because it means that we have to start out using many sentences to explain what all those words mean, as opposed to Newton Power Choice, which says the name of the town, then uses the word power or whatever, electricity or energy, whatever, and then choice, because we're giving people a choice. And in that meeting with Marlena, she agreed that it is a problematic name, but to date, she's never seen anyone change a name once a program was established. She did get back to us and say that it looks like it should not be a problem, that it should all be able to happen without it being a big deal. But then I didn't know what that meant. Like, so then what exactly would have to happen? Like, Lee, would the selectmen have to, would this have to, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think we need to work this out. I think, just for background, with the name Community Choice is part of the original plan filed with the DPU back in 2015, and that's sort of the brand name. So the first question that the program is trying to answer is, would the DPU allow the name change? And I think the indication is that that name change is immaterial, and they would allow it. I think we need to clarify that.
Right, and we already know that the name that we want to switch to is fine because Newton uses it, Salem uses it, I think Worcester. I'm not sure about Worcester, but I know there are other.
Yeah, lots do. Yeah. So I think it would need to be approved. I think we should ask the Board of Selectmen. It's just a.
So Lee,
It's a brand name. It's part of our image. They should be supportive, I would hope.
So Lee, what would we need to do?
We just have to put it on the agenda as a request for the Board of Selectmen to vote to change that name. And I think it makes a lot of sense because I always got confused about community aggregate myself. So having power choice sounds good to me. So I think it wouldn't be difficult to sell to them.
The other question in my mind on this is it best to do it coincident with the new contract? We could begin using Westborough Power Choice immediately upon the board approval and potentially update the website now and then introduce the new contract under that brand, having already changed the name.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
What do you think, John?
I don't necessarily think there's any problem doing it earlier that I can think of offhand. The other question that I think Carol brought up was also the names of the individual plans.
Let's just stick to the.
I don't want to get to that now, but it's all part of this branding and look and feel and getting right. I think changing this sooner, if it isn't hard, if the DPU truly has no problem, then I think we should want to go ahead forward once we get a go ahead.
So what we would need to do is to have probably Sustainable Westborough write a letter to the board requesting this change in some, to try to formalize it. Does that sound right to you, Lee?
Yes.
Just an
And
email.
then Christy, ex-town manager, because she worked with John on it, Christy could actually present the question after the board had gotten the letter, but she could present the question at the board on the agenda. And if John would like to be there as backup for any questions at that particular meeting, that would be good.
Maybe we could do it as part of the meeting in June when we're talking about other aspects of this.
That'd be good.
Aggregation plan.
That's early enough, I think.
Yeah.
Everybody think that's early enough?
Yeah, I was just going to comment, this is Tim, that the same as with the press release. I think one of the things that I've heard kind of newcomer and listening to the selectmen is that that communications could be improved with regard to the program for whatever reason. And so I think the thoughtful communications plan would be the vehicle to introduce the new brand. That's just sort of a general communications. I think if you're changing the name and, with regard to the press release, that all of that gets coordinated for a timeline late August or September. Makes a lot of sense to me. Now, petitioning the selectmen to change the name now, I think is fine, but to me, it makes more sense to be part of a communications plan that includes a branding change and that you're rolling out all of these activities that underscore that branding change.
I have mixed feelings about it. I actually feel like having the brand, the name change, nobody knows community choice aggregation today. It's not like we have to say this thing that's so familiar to everybody is now going to become this new thing, Westborough Power Choice. I think we could just begin using Westborough Power Choice. And then when the press release